I was talking for 45 minutes. It's gonna be fun editing this. Hello everybody and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are on part 2 of how to overcome depression. So let's get started. So if you haven't already watched part 1, then I will link that in the description box below. That will definitely make more sense for this video if you watch that first. But if you've already seen that, then let's just dive into it. Today I will be sharing some tips and tools that I have found useful on my journey healing depression. You may find none of them help you, you may find all of them help you, you might just find one of them helps you. That's okay, that's completely fine. Take what you need, release what you don't, let go of what you don't. It's completely fine. And it also might just be interesting to hear some things that you might not have thought of doing or trying yourself, or for somebody else you know you may wish to recommend certain things to them when they're in a space to receive that recommendation. Wait a minute, my battery's about to run out, hang on. So as with the last video, this video obviously comes with a trigger warning. Some of the things I share may touch upon a sensitive spot for you, especially if you are experiencing depression right now. So please be mindful and gentle with yourself if that is the case. And also, again, I am not a medical professional. I am not a mental health specialist. If you do find that you are experiencing any of the things I have shared, then please do go and seek advice from a medical professional, especially a doctor. So I am somebody who really believes, especially from my personal experience, that medical or scientific medicine is just as important as the spiritual and holistic side when it comes to healing depression. I blended those two together really nicely and that helped me. If you haven't already tried that, I recommend it. And if you have, maybe there'll be something new that I'll share today you might find useful. So the first tip for overcoming depression is seeking medical help and getting antidepressants. This may not work for you. You might be somebody who wants to work completely naturally. I totally respect you if that is the case. And if you are somebody who has tried antidepressants and they haven't worked for you, then again, that is completely fine. Please do listen to your body and trust your body and what it's telling you when you are trying to heal through depression. I found antidepressants really helpful. I was on a low dose to start with and then it went up slightly. I was on antidepressants for about 8 to 10 months. Honestly, they really helped to be quite numb, and in that space of being numb, it allowed me to be open and receptive to healing because I wasn't overwhelmed. So I was actually able to be a bit more open and honest with the counsellor and the healer than I possibly would have been if I had just gone in completely, I want to say naked, but that's not the case. If I'd gone in, like without anything else. So I definitely found them really useful. The only thing I would say is that ever since I've had depression / antidepressants, I have found that my memory is awful. Like, I genuinely cannot remember words or things, and I don't know if that's just purely because my brain was so overwhelmed when I was depressed that it got into a state of short-term memory gets cut out. Like, I'm so bad at remembering names or even just what things are called. I literally have like a complete mental block, and I used to have such a good memory. That's just a side effect I noticed. You might not notice any side effects. Obviously there are with any kind of medicine, some kind of side effect here, there and everywhere. Does that make sense? So just trust yourself and your body, and if you're finding that you feel worse, then obviously seek your doctor's help, and if you're finding that you feel better, then that's definitely a great start. The next tip for overcoming depression is breathing. Sounds really simple, but as I mentioned in part 1, quite often you don't breathe properly when you're experiencing depression because you're in that space of fight or flight. So your breath can be quite shallow, quite fast. So I recommend seeking help through breathwork classes, whether that's online or in person, where maybe it's a book that you read or a YouTube video that you watch for help. Or it can just be as simple as taking a deep breath in, holding it for the count of 1, and then exhaling it. This is something I used to do a lot when my anxiety was really flaring up. I would just breathe in, count to 1, and exhale slowly. And I would do that quite often. When I had been for several months of healing and counselling, I eventually found a job at the recommendation of my healer. I can remember every single time I got the bus to work, I would just have such strong anxiety of seeing other people, having to do a job. What if I couldn't do it? What if they guessed I was depressed? That was a huge fear of mine. What if somebody guessed I was depressed? And what if they judged me and laughed at me and ridiculed me for it? So I actually really struggled with that as an anxiety, and I would really be on the bus literally like shaking, couldn't breathe, feeling hot and clammy, and I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna pass out in a minute. And I would just remember what they taught us in the 6-week night class around depression was just take a deep breath in, count to 1, exhale. Any more than 1 can be a little bit too much initially. If you find that 1 is too easy, obviously go for 2. Go for 3. But honestly, the best way to start is just with 1. Breathe in, hold for 1, exhale slowly. It's as simple as that. Really useful tip, really helped me. Even to this day, actually, sometimes I'll use it. Like, I get quite nervous if I do something for the first time. That's when my anxiety usually flares up. Like if I'm meeting someone in a new place, or if I'm moving to a new place, or if I've got a new job, like the first time I do something, I get really nervous and really anxious. So I usually employ this tactic, which is take a deep breath in, hold, exhale. So useful, definitely recommend it. The next tip is walks in the country. Oh yeah, so good. Literally so healing. Being in nature is healing anyway, but also if you are in a space of needing to feel more grounded, more connected to earth, definitely recommend this. I did this a lot when I was depressed. When I was first signed off by the doctor, I would go for literally hour-long walks with my dog, and I would just walk up and down the same field just talking to myself. And it might sound a little bit weird, but honestly I was kind of expressing myself, just getting things out of my head that maybe I hadn't said. This was kind of initially before I went for oh dear. This was initially before I went for counselling, but then I continued it because I actually found it really helpful. It gave me an opportunity to move through things. It kind of became a walking meditation for me in the end, and I still actually do this pretty much every day, just on a shorter version, and maybe I don't always talk aloud. Depends where I am. Yeah, really, really helpful. Getting the fresh air, actually being in nature, being around grass, trees, wildlife. So good if you are depressed. Really, really good. If you live in the city, or you live somewhere where you don't have a garden, for example, where is the nearest nature place you can go to? Can you get a bus somewhere? Is there a friend who can give you a lift? Is there a walking group you can join? It might sound like really boring, but it really isn't. I can't tell you how much it stabilized my mood, made me feel better. I would come home and I would just feel so much calmer, more peaceful. Really, really recommend this. So just finding, even if there's a local park you can go to. Let's say you live in the city and you know there's a designated park area in the center of the city. You can go there, you can put some headphones in and you can listen to some relaxing music, or you could listen to a podcast or something that you find interesting, or you could literally just be in silence and just watch the world go by. But just being in that space is going to be really healing for you. I'd recommend it every day if you can, but as often as you can if you are still working or unable to get to that place every day. The next tip is counselling. As I said to you in part 1, I went for counselling. I only had 6 free sessions. I didn't have any more after that. To be honest, I probably would have if it weren't for the healing I went for, because they were kind of like half counselling, half healing. So we'd talk for say 20 minutes, then I'd lie on the couch and I'd receive the healing, and then we'd talk for like 20 minutes afterwards. That was really good for me. If I hadn't experienced that, then I probably would have continued and paid for counselling. But it's just really good to be in that space. As I said in the last video, being totally received and totally heard uninterrupted is very powerful. It's more powerful than you might think. If you go with a mindset of this counsellor is just here to listen, and they might ask you questions or share some insights, it depends on their training, but really they're just there to hold space and support you as you talk and express yourself without being shut down, blocked off or interrupted. Of course, the next tip is healing. It's so good. Mixing clinical counselling, I call it clinical, that's just because it was more of like what you would expect counselling to be, and some kind of holistic or more heart-centered approach together really worked for me, because I had the logical side and the heart-centered side, which was really good. For me, that just worked really well. I wish you could see my dog. He's actually flopping off the edge of the sofa. Oh, he's so cute. Definitely recommend healing. So my healer specialised in chakra healing and in crystal healing and some kind of metaphysical healing. I never really knew what that was, but it was really good. He also did tarot and oracle and things like that. Really found that useful. So I would definitely recommend something like that and try it out. So it could be EFT, it could be Reiki, it could be matrix re-imprinting, it could be hypnotherapy, it could be chakra healing, it could be acupuncture, it could be what's the thing with the feet? I'm going to put a list here basically of all the different types of healing that I recommend to try, because firstly there's so many, and secondly you will need to find the one that resonates for you. What resonated for me, the chakra healing, etc., might not resonate for you. You might try chakra healing and just be like, what's the big fuss? I don't get it. Or you might find that EFT is like the best thing ever for you. So just trying all these different things is really useful. So the next tip is affirmations and positive self-talk. So I really spoke quite negatively about myself. I basically hated myself, and I can remember when I went to see the healer initially, he said that my self-love was literally at like 0, and after the sessions that we had together it went up to like 60%. And what the healer did was he set some affirmations for me to say every day. So I think he gave me 5 or 6, and I took them home and I actually turned them into a piece of, I guess, like an art project, and I did some drawings of what the affirmation was. So I can't remember them now, but let's say it was, I love and accept myself. I drew a little picture of myself and, you know, like hugging myself with hearts or something like that. Really useful, really helpful. And we also did a lot of mirror work as well, where you look in the mirror, and I have a mirror there by the way, you look in the mirror and you talk at yourself eye to eye and share that. That can be quite intense. I wouldn't recommend doing that straight away. I would say once you've kind of got down the road of healing a bit more to try it, it can be really intense initially, but once you get used to it, you kind of come into a space of accepting yourself a bit more, and it's actually really beautiful. So I really recommend that when you have a bit more time. So starting with positive self-talk, saying affirmations, and you can do it looking in the mirror when you're brushing your teeth or drying your hair, whatever you do, with or without the mirror is fine, but just in your mind saying something positive, repeating those affirmations, really healing. If you need any help with any affirmations, then you know I have my chakra self-love deck. I will link the last couple of decks I have in the description box below. I'm about to sell out of them, but they might be for you, so you can find the link below. The next tip I have for healing and overcoming depression is self-love. This is a huge part of it. So as I say, I went from basically hating myself to learning to be okay with myself, to learning to like myself, to learning to love myself. And I would say honestly the journey started when I went for healing in 2013. Like, I hated myself, and then I went for the healing and the counselling, etc. And then by about 2015 I had started my own self-love journey, where I had really taken it very seriously, and I was doing something every single day to love myself. That's quite a long period of time. It's not an overnight process, and it really kind of shouldn't be, because if you're overnight deciding that you love yourself, either you've got some great techniques that you're doing, please share them, or you're not really actually doing the work, you're just kind of pretending. Self-love is really important, so if you need any help, please do see my video around the beginner's guide to self-love. I will link that again below. And just find what works for you. Self-love is very individual, as I always say. There is no one rule for everyone, and please just find what works for you. I think what's really nice about self-love is it invites you to spend time alone, because then you can fill up your own cup and receive and understand what you need first. And I think when we're surrounded by other people, they always kind of need something from us, whether it's energetic, emotional, mental, etc. Whereas when you're on your own, nobody needs anything from you apart from you. That's huge. That's mind-blowingly cool, that when you're on your own, only you need something from you. Only you therefore can fill that up. So it's just the coolest thing ever. I love self-love, definitely recommend it. If you need any guidance or any tips, again, just let me know and I can send you just tons of things I found really useful. The next tool or tip I recommend for overcoming depression is back flower remedies, or any kind of flower essence or crystal essence. I used quite a few. The one I would recommend initially would be Star of Bethlehem. It's great when you're in a state of shock and almost like, oh my god, is this real? Is this happening? Really good, especially if you've experienced loss and that's what's triggered your depression. And of course Rescue Remedy is really good, but honestly the best thing to do would be to go and see a back flower specialist or a crystal essence or a flower essence therapist. I happen to know a couple. They're really amazing. If you would like their email addresses to get in touch with them, please just let me know and I will send it to you. It's alright, it's alright, it's alright, it's alright, it's alright, it's alright, it's alright. Oh, somebody drove a trailer past, how they naughty. But what's really nice about any flower or crystal essence is that it's very gentle and it works on a very subtle level, but at the same time it's quite profound. I know that sounds contradictory, but honestly I've always found flower essences really support me and guide me, and they're really good for when you're feeling emotionally overwhelmed or stressed. So definitely recommend checking those out. The next tip or tool for overcoming depression is yoga, or Pilates or weights or cardio or whatever you want. I recommend yoga because it's quite relaxing and peaceful, and that can be quite nice because quite often you're overwhelmed by thoughts and feelings and emotions and everything when you're depressed, and yoga is just the most calming, peaceful thing ever. So when I was depressed, I would go to a yoga class once a week, and it was the only time I'd see people, obviously apart from when I went for my healing, when I walked from the bus stop to the counsellor or to the healer's office. Other than that, I just literally was shut away, isolated, hiding myself from the world. I would literally never talk to anyone, even though they were all really nice in the class. I was just so shy, so nervous, so full of anxiety. I couldn't really just bring myself to speak. So they probably thought I was a bit rude, but actually I was just really overwhelmed with everything I was experiencing and going through, and just all the stuff I was doing. My mind was just full, and I really enjoyed that I could just go there and all I would think about was taking a breath in, exhaling a breath out, moving to this posture, moving to that posture. It was the only time, it was like that 1 hour where I didn't think about being depressed or what I'd been through that had led me to be depressed. So I really recommend that. Of course, if you prefer weights, if you prefer cardio, do whatever exercise feels good for you, but moving your body is fantastic because of endorphins. We love endorphins. I love endorphins. They're the best design ever by your brain. Like, is it your brain that's responsible for them? I don't really know. It doesn't matter. You can Google that if you want to know. But endorphins are the coolest thing ever because you start off feeling like, I don't want to do this. I don't really feel inclined to exercise or move. And then you do it and you think, I feel amazing. Even just I feel relaxed in my body, or I feel like more flexible, or I feel I've done something, I've achieved something for the day, because quite often you don't really seek to achieve things when you're depressed. If you even get out of bed, that's huge. If you can make it to a class, or even if you can just like roll out of bed, flop onto the floor next to the bed and do some yoga stretches there, even if you do 3 yoga stretches, even if you do cat, cow, lizard and pigeon, they're some of my favorites. You know, even if you do those, that's something you've achieved, that's something you can feel really positive about. And my last tip for overcoming depression is talking to people, sharing how you're feeling with your close friends and relatives. I didn't do that, and that's the one thing I regret. I hid it away from my friends, I hid it away from everybody actually, except for my mum and one person who happened to find out. She was my neighbour, and she picked me up from the night class about depression, and she happened to know that the night class was about depression, and she guessed, put 2 and 2 together. Other than that, I didn't tell anyone, and I wish that I had, because that might have given an opportunity for my friendships to go a bit deeper. And I unfortunately lost a couple of friendships because I didn't tell them, because they didn't understand why I'd completely withdrawn from our connection and our friendships. I would definitely recommend sharing it with people. You don't have to obviously go into immense detail, but just saying, I'm experiencing depression. Or you can even ask somebody else, like your mum or your sister or your brother or your dad or your cousin or whoever, to tell that person for you if you're finding it difficult to shape the words. Because even just saying the word depression is, there's just such a like heavy, weird energy around it that even now I'm like, ugh, when I say it. It still feels a bit weird to me because I'm like, I can remember what it felt like when I was in that space. So even if you can just share it with somebody and say, look, this is what's going on for me, it's just so powerful to share that, because then they can support you. If somebody doesn't know that something's going on, they can't support you, they can't be there for you, they can't even just hear you out or anything. And that's the one thing that I regret, is that I lost friendships because I just couldn't admit to something, because I felt so ashamed of it, because I felt so ashamed of myself. So I would just say, when you feel you can, share it with those who are close to you and allow them to support you, even if that's just a simple thing. If somebody walks away from a friendship or a relationship with you because of that, they are definitely not worth having in your life, and it's probably better that you know that now and can release them and let them go, and then when you're ready you can obviously forgive them and forgive yourself. So I'm just editing and I realized I missed off 3 really useful tips and tools for overcoming depression. So of course there's progressive muscle relaxation. If you would like me to create a meditation for that, just let me know. But that is so useful when you feel that tension and that adrenaline coursing through your body. You become really tense, and it's really nice actually to practice this so that you are consciously tensing and consciously relaxing your body, so that you can recognize when you're in that space and then move to the other space. So definitely recommend that. And then of course the next tool is meditation. It is so useful if you have depression or anxiety or any kind of panic attacks or stresses. Meditation is literally the best tool that you can ever use. It's just so relaxing, and it's just really helpful for taking your mind off what's bothering you, and for relaxing the body, and for bringing you into a higher state of consciousness, and just really releasing what it is that you're feeling stressed on, even just for 5 or 10 minutes. I definitely recommend guided meditations, especially if you've never meditated before. It's really good to follow along and listen to someone's voice. So if you don't already know, I have several meditations which you can listen to on my channel. So you can just click onto my playlists and you can see the meditation playlist and enjoy those. And then finally, crystals. I can't believe I missed this one off. So I used crystals all the time when I was depressed. I actually use this, which is aragonite. You can see that. I used to wear that pretty much all the time because it's really good for helping when you're feeling angry, and just helping you move through that and express it in a more loving way. Really great crystal. I also used Apache tear and obviously regular quartz, but recently I have discovered lepidolite is fantastic. It's got a lot of lithium in it, and also pink lithium quartz as well. I don't know if you can see that. These are both really good because they both have lithium in. Obviously lithium is an ingredient in some antidepressants, so really useful to actually have that in crystal form. But I definitely recommend crystals as a tool to work with, whether that's placing them under your bed in a grid, or carrying them in a pocket, or wearing them, or just having them in your room to uplift you, you know, to work with when you meditate. So powerful and really beautiful to tune into more of a natural energy and to bring that in when you're healing. So I definitely recommend that as well. Okay, back to editing. So I hope that you've enjoyed this 2-part video where I have shared my story and also tips that can help you, that definitely helped me. Let me know in the comments below if you have any other tips you'd recommend, and if you've tried any of the tips and found them useful. And I will see you in next week's video. Thanks for watching.